Brian Rotarians, Dr. Lynn Arnold has had an amazing life. He started life as a teacher and went on into politics, and as you all know here, became a Minister of the Crown and Premier of South Australia. But like a lot of politicians, he didn't leave his career at that point, and has since gone on to take a major role in a number of charitable bodies, particularly World Vision, of which he was the Australian Chief Executive, and now Anglicare South Australia, of which he's Chief Executive and head to staff of some 1,475 permanent people. It's a big organisation, Anglicare, with a turnover approaching $100 million. Dr. Lynn Arnold has had an amazing life, a highlight of which, of course, was a period as an elected member on the Salisbury Council. And I mention that because he may neglect to mention that in his address. We've asked him today to address us on the subject of his interesting life. Would you please welcome this amazing South Australian, Dr. Lynn Arnold.
Well, thank you very much, Stephen Haynes, and to President Brian Harris, and to all members of the Adelaide Rotary Club. I bring greetings from Adelaide East Rotary Club. This is one of the few places one can come into and actually ask for makeup. So I've had my makeup provided to take it back to my club. But it's great to be here. I recognise so many of you from different parts of my life over the years, and so it's good to catch up with you again. I must say that I was on the Salisbury Council for 3 years. I was elected on Eclipse Day 1976, October 1976, and my council career was eclipsed 3 years later when I entered State Parliament in 1979. Now, you've asked me to speak about my life. I'm 62, so if you're prepared to wait for the 62 years it will take me to go through it, I'm happy to do that. There's a few things about my life. I have been enormously blessed, and I am very grateful for the parents that I have, my late father and my mother. They've been wonderful parents, my sister, my late sister, and I've had many opportunities. And what I've had the great pleasure of learning over the years from them and through life is that sometimes the great opportunities are not those that you might expect them to be. I actually follow a Bible verse that's very powerful, Ephesians 3:20, which talks about more than we can ask or imagine. And my life has been filled with things that have been more than I ever could have asked or imagined. It has some interesting characteristics to it. I went to 8 primary schools as a kid. That wasn't because I was being expelled. Colin Bryson, I hasten to point that out to you. I went to 1 high school, in fact the best, Adelaide High. But the reason I went to 8 primary schools is that we moved a bit. We lived in 4 different countries by the time I was 12. I was born in South Africa, Canada, then to New Zealand, and then settled in Adelaide, and so loved Adelaide. This is pretty much where we've stayed ever since. When I was 6 years of age, I wanted to be Prime Minister, and my mates wanted to be firemen and policemen, and we all failed. But it did really highlight the fact that I had an enormous interest in politics from the youngest age. A mother who has fire in the belly and a firebrand from brought up in Liverpool in the UK. If anyone knows the Scouts will know that they do have fire in the belly. And a father who had an enormous sense of justice and fairness. So I always had the desire to go into politics. At that particular time, in my childhood and teens, I noted the fact that Konrad Adenauer, Charles de Gaulle, Winston Churchill, Dwight Eisenhower, Mao Zedong were all well and truly into their 60s and 70s when they were in leadership positions in their country. So I really thought, well, that means I won't enter Parliament until I'm in my late 50s, early 60s, and that's when I will go on and become Prime Minister. And I'd have to fill in the time in between. And I wasn't quite sure how I was going to do that. In fact, I've had a lot of interesting opportunities that happened, and as you know, I didn't have to wait till my late 50s to not only enter, but also exit politics. So I became a teacher chalky and had 6 wonderful years in the education system. Learned a great deal about it from that point of view. I taught at Salisbury North Tech, as it then was, and learned a great deal about the challenges that face many in our community. Salisbury is a wonderful community. I lived and worked in it for a quarter of a century, but there are many in that community who face very great economic challenges. But I learned very quickly to look at it as being economic challenges. We have a phrase in our society where we don't want to call people poor, so we call them low socioeconomic. In fact, low socioeconomic is almost as pejorative a phrase as calling people poor. It presumes that somebody low economic is automatically low socio. And I discovered when I lived and worked out in that area the great richness of a community that often exists where economic challenges are. After that, I became an apprentice, sort of. I went to work for a State Member of Parliament, Reg Groth, who was the member for Salisbury. I don't suspect anyone in this room will have known Reg Groth, but he was one of those great people we all have the opportunity to meet in life and hopefully have the awareness to know we're meeting them. And he was not a high flyer. He was never going to be a minister or a premier, but he was a salt of the earth, former union organiser, but he cared enormously about people. And I learned a lot from him working in his office, working how to work with people who came through the door with housing problems or water problems or bills or whatever, and to know that there are ways in which you should be helping people. After that, he retired from politics, and thanks to Don Dunstan, he helped play a role in my getting the pre-selection for that seat, and I became the member for Salisbury for 15 years, from September the 15th, 1979 to September the 15th, 1994. The reason why I'm so tidy is that I did have the good fortune that is often not available to people of choosing my own use-by date before others chose it for me. And I decided that I would leave politics after I'd been leader of the opposition for about 9 months. And I thought, well, if I'm going to leave, I may as well leave on a tidy date. And so that's where the September 15th came into. My 15 years in Parliament delivered enormous opportunities to me. I'm often asked, did I enjoy my time in politics, and do I miss it? And I have a pat phrase that I use. I had 15 wonderful years. A third of the time was good, a third was bad, a third was terrible, but I was happy because it could have been worse. And I had in those 15 years wonderful opportunities. Very few people get the opportunity to be Premier of this state. Not much fewer get the opportunity to be a Cabinet Minister. And I was a Cabinet Minister for 10.5 years before being Premier for about 15 months. And to have that opportunity to be able to be at those positions in government and decision-making was a very powerful and privileged experience. Did I do it as well as I believe I could have done? I believe I did. Did I make mistakes? I made lots of them. And did I know all the mistakes I've made? I think I know some of them, and others, I guess others feel they know and I don't. But it was an opportunity to be part of a state at some very interesting and challenging times. But the question is, do I miss it? No, 15 wonderful years, enjoyed them enormously, and missed them not at all. Because there was a time to move on. And I guess that's one thing that's always motivated my life, is that I hope I know the time to move on. When new challenges are needed, and the people with whom you're with, they need new leadership or new whatever in their role. In fact, when I joined World Vision after coming back from 2 years in Spain after leaving politics, I was appointed Chief Executive Officer of World Vision Australia. And I asked, how long is the role for? And is it a 3-year contract or a 5-year contract? And they said, oh, no, it's a permanent role. And I said, well, I actually have to tell you, that's very nice of you, but I have to tell you, I don't think that's a good idea. I think an organisation like that needs a turnover of CEOs, and I need to be gone in my 7th or 8th year. And you don't need to make a job for me, I need to find myself. But you will need new leadership, and I will need new challenges. And so it's pretty much the way I've tended to see a lot of my working life has been in phases of moving on to new challenges. In my time in politics, I had the opportunity, as I say, to be involved in many things. You may have seen that episode of Yes Minister, Yes Prime Minister, where Jim Hacker is being interviewed by a schoolgirl. And the schoolgirl asks him the question, well, what have you done while you've been in cabinet? And he answers, well, you know, I'm part of a team, and we, as a team, we work together to achieve the goals. And she said, no, what have you done? And so he answers again, I'm part of a team, and we've done things together. No, what have you actually done? And he then goes into a depressed state and realises, of course, he can't answer anything to that. And yet I actually have comfort from that, not because it's a point of comparison, it's a very low baseline, but because that is, in fact, the reality of people in leadership roles, is that you can't actually claim to single-handedly to have done anything, really, because it always requires others to be part of the process. When we see the statement, if you go and visit Paris and you see that Napoleon built the Arc de Triomphe, well, he didn't. Bricklayers and stonemasons built it, and other people designed it and so on. But you know what they mean when they say he built it. He was a key player that made a difference that enabled that to happen. And so that's really the best that you can hope to see, is what things could it have been that you made a difference by having been in that role. And so I look back through my time in cabinet, and there's a few things I look back to say, well, I believe I played a significant role in these things. The Centre for Manufacturing, which I think did a lot to boost manufacturing in the late 1980s. The Ghana Plains Aboriginal School, Elizabeth, the State Economic Development Board, which I established as Premier and then got wound up, and now it's been re-established. And things like that are what I look to as things that I thought, well, they happened, and I'm proud of the fact I had a chance to be a part of that. Anyway, the time came and went, and doors closed on me, and I've always believed that one should look at all doors, whether they be slamming shut in your face or opening before you, as really helping to determine what you should go on in life to do. And so while at the time it wasn't a particularly pleasant occasion to lose the election, though it was always inevitable that I would do so, I then thought I would stay on for, the idea was I would stay on as Leader of the Opposition for a term of Parliament, and then I would lose the next election was the game plan, and not to, of course, but everyone felt he couldn't do anything else but lose. So then at that point I would leave and somebody else would take over, and that would be my grant. Now it was actually quite a reasonable game plan, but at the end of 9 months my heart wasn't in it, and I wasn't serving my party well, I wasn't serving the Parliament well, and I wasn't serving the community well, and I wasn't serving me well. And so it was at that point that we upped stakes and went to Spain. Why Spain? Well, it was as totally different as it could be. I mean, I have a love affair of Spain anyway from a very young age. But it was just something totally different. And I knew that the transition from a major role like being in Parliament was going to be a difficult one. And it's not always easily done by other people. So I wanted something that would not give me the chance to think about what I'd left. And so we went to Spain, my wife and our 5 kids. We have 5 kids under, when the youngest were born, 5 kids under 3 years, 10 months. And the mathematics of that, I'll let you think about for a minute. And we took the kids to Spain. We told them 3 weeks out from, or on the night before I announced my resignation from Parliament, I told them that we were leaving, I was leaving Parliament, and 3 weeks from now we'd be in Spain. We then 3 weeks later had 3 weeks to pack up and get everything organised, sell everything up and so on. Got to Spain, and within 3 days of arriving in Spain, we enrolled the kids in Spanish government schools where they couldn't speak the language. And so one of my jobs for the first 3 months was to translate the questions of their homework so they knew what they were being asked by the teachers, and so they could then answer them. And that really was a great major change of career, because I didn't have a chance to think what I'd left, and there was no opportunity to even feel I was missing it. So we lived in Spain for 2 years. That was a wonderful, relaxing, family rebuilding experience. We'd been a close family, we still are a close family, but the time in politics had taken its toll, and so the chance to be able to sit around the dinner table again and have dinners, have your teenagers willingly sit there, was just a wonderful experience as they got Spanish language under control, and they were less frequently at dinner, but certainly for the first part they enjoyed the family experience. When we came back, I joined World Vision, and I was with them for 11 years, 7 years as CEO of World Vision Australia, then 3 years as Regional Vice President for World Vision International for Asia Pacific, based out of Bangkok, and then just over a year as Senior Director for Governance for World Vision International, responsible for their 54 boards around the world. They then wanted me to move to the US, and without any offence to the US, because I have enormous regard for the US, at that time in my life I didn't want to. I wanted to come home. We'd been 12 years away from Adelaide. My father had not long died, and my mother-in-law had died just a month earlier, and so my wife and I wanted to come home. And so I knew I had to leave World Vision, and I didn't know what would turn up. And then by chance, a friend pointed out the advert for Anglicare, and so I joined Anglicare, and I've had 3.5 wonderful years there. Of course, now I know what it feels like to look like the back of a bus, and but I'm getting used to that. I just wish I'd told my mother that the ad was there. I forgot to tell her, and she's driving along the road one day, and there's buses there in front of her. She looks up and recognises there's son there, and then rings me up and says, "Why didn't you tell me?" Anyway, but that's really taken me to this point in my life, and I don't know what happens from this point on. I just know that I've been blessed to this point, and I hope I have the wisdom to see God's blessings wherever they may lie. Now, I want to share some quick thoughts about things that I've gleaned out of that, and I'm conscious that it says 222 here on the thing. So I'll take that times not right. Some of the things that have really come out of my experience, what I think I've gleaned out of this. Point one. When I was Education Minister, I said something that all Education Ministers since the first have said, and I'm ashamed of it. I actually have a videotape to prove that I said it, which makes it even worse that I know I said it. And what I said was, is that children are our greatest resource. And I'm ashamed to have said that. And you may wonder why. Well, having had the experience I've had over the years since, when I've seen street kids in so many parts of Asia and Africa and Latin America, where there are societies who don't value children, and when they're not a resource to them, then they're dispensable, they're disposable. It taught me to understand that we should not have a paradigm that says the only value of children is to be our resource. Children are precious in their own right. And if they are of no value to you or I, that doesn't matter. They're still of value. And so to say children are our greatest resource is to say that they have a dependency value, dependent on their worth to you and me. But they don't. They have an inherent value all of their own. Secondly, I was asked sometimes after I'd been to fields like the Gujarat earthquake or Rwanda or East Timor just after the Interfet landing, places of great devastation surrounding, I was asked, how do you feel when you come from situations like that? And I had an answer for that, and the answer was that I always felt I came away with burdens and joys. Yes, I was burdened by what I would see. Truly dreadful things. Where you actually smell the smell of death. You literally smell the smell of death. The English language doesn't have a respectful word for the smell of a dead body. It should. But when you've had thousands buried in earthquake debris around you, and you smell it. Many burdens. But I have not been in any situation where I have not also taken out joys. And the joys have been a real uplift to me. Some of those joys are what you might expect. They're the joys of seeing things happen that are making things better for those who have just suffered. But some of them just blow you away. They're more than you can ask or imagine, to use that phrase I used at the start. I think of the 3 young boys in Congo, in a squatter settlement in Goma. Dreadful place. No agency was at that stage actually working in this large refugee settlement. And they were just scrounging. Everybody there, the thousands of people there, were scrounging for what they could. And there were some of the people were cooking grass in tins. That was as best as they could get. And there were 3 teenage boys there, not related to each other, but they were sharing a hovel together. And I asked, how did they get by? And they said, well, they're scrounging. And they're getting by with the help of their neighbours. And I looked at their neighbours, and their neighbours had absolutely nothing, but apparently enough to share. And it was that kind of experience, time and again, happening as I would go around different areas, that you would always get something like that coming out of it. So it led me, when we were in Anglicare, we have a slogan, "Hope is here." That is actually quite a deliberative slogan. It's about saying that there cannot be any situation that is existentially hopeless. Something may be circumstantially hopeless, it may look hopeless, but it doesn't have to stay that way. And you may say, oh yeah, but I saw a case of. Well, I can tell you, for every story you might say there, I would say there is a want of belief in hope. And I can also put against it another story of the most amazing problems being overcome if people are prepared to stay the distance, helping people get back on their feet. And that's why we have the Hope is Here logo. But one of the other things I've discovered, and it comes back to that Jim Hackett statement, what difference did you make? But one of the differences we can make, and it's one of the differences I hope I've had a chance to play a part of, is what I call narrative changing. If we don't like what we see, do something about it. But if we don't like what we see, do something about changing the direction of the wind that caused it to happen. And there are things that can be done that we don't give ourselves credit for. I can tell you stories, but I haven't got the time about how that can be evidenced. But I hope that I've learned out of my career that changing narratives is actually as important as actually achieving tangible bricks and mortar things. If you change community attitudes, then ultimately we can have a better community. And can I just give you one area where I think we need a change of attitude in our community? We have, Anglicare is a big provider of foster carers. We have children in foster care growing in number at the rate of 7% a year. There are twice as many children in care in this country now than what there were 10 years ago. Now I ask you, is there not a need for a narrative change? What is it about the health of our families that is so failing in itself? And what is it about us as a society that is somehow not being there to help families at those critical moments before they break up, that is resulting in this explosion in kids who can't stay with their own families? Most of them get to stay with foster parents, but by the way, some of them don't even get to stay there because we haven't got enough foster parents. They end up staying in motel rooms. So, out of my career, I give thanks for what's happened over the years, the opportunities, but I hope I have the opportunity to keep on drawing these kind of lessons. The slamming of doors in my face has been uncomfortable sometimes, but it has provided new opportunities that were beyond my asking or imagining. I don't know how long I will be working at one thing or another. My grandmother showed the danger, my maternal grandmother showed the danger of leaving work too early. She was a teacher 3 days a week at a little school in Weenen, South Africa. Rob knows Weenen. And she gave up work, and 2 years later she was dead at the age of 88. My father was still doing lecturing in various tours overseas, not full time, but he was going on lecturing, doing lecturing in universities, filling in, when he was still 79. So I hope the opportunities are there, but if they're not, whatever happens, I'll give thanks for. It's great to be here. Thank you very much indeed. It's great to meet such a wonderful bunch.
Dr. Arnold, thank you very much for a fascinating address. I was very pleased to hear you mention your father because he taught me geomechanics at university.
Oh, wonderful.
And he was a fine man and the gentlest of men. And I mention that time because I recall that at that very same time you were very active in student politics.
Yes.
I would say. Very active. Some might even say militant. And it makes me wonder, hearing what you said, whether there was anything that you were passionate, I'm sure there are things that you were passionate about then, that still stir your passion and that you feel might be unfinished business.
People not getting a fair go, poverty, especially when it's because development has not been given a chance to happen. The kids who end up being the disposed of society, I'm passionate about that. I mean, you kind of walk through street kid projects in different parts of the world and see these kids that are like your own grandkids. I've got grandkids, and I look at them and I have every wish for them, and I see these other kids, and I know their grandparents want the same. So yeah, I'm passionate about that. Just a story about my dad. I was active in student politics and got myself arrested a few times. And the first time I was arrested, a friend didn't quite know how to break it to my parents. So he went to my father's office at the Adelaide Evening and went in and started talking, was hedging around the topic. And father said, what's wrong? What do you want? Oh, Lynn's been arrested. Oh yeah, I thought he would.
Charlie, I really enjoyed that, and I could feel the passion for what you do. It's good to hear that from a former politician. And, if I hadn't knew that, I would have voted to keep you going. I'd also like to say that the other thing that failed in your life is you actually taught my wife, and she did do a very good job of that. Now, the question I want to ask is, I'm constantly getting in a bit of trouble whenever I meet a politician, because I don't believe they walk the hard yards and go out and have a look at the vocation they're in, the ministry that they're in. And when they do, it's all planned, so it's not impromptu. Would you agree with that, or do you think that they don't actually really understand the situation of poverty and the Indigenous situation, etc.?
Well, a lot of them don't, but I think what you have to understand is that politicians are as good as we provide for, in the sense that we vote for them. You voted for me, or some of you voted for me. And so the society is made up of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so it elects the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I've had the pleasure to serve in Parliament with people on both sides, for whom I have the highest regard, and for whom I still have contacts. I'm no longer active in anything in politics at all, but I still maintain contacts with these people for whom I have the highest regard. But there were some people in my time for whom I had no regard, and that was on both sides. But I think the community actually does have to recognise you're the ones who put politicians there, and so you're accountable too. And I think also you need to work out what you would expect of politicians. And politicians, for their part, need to get out of this focus group addiction that they've got, where they're moving away from leadership just to responding to what the focus group tells them are the hot buttons. That is a depressing state of affairs in the body politic at federal and state level, in my view, at the moment.
Dr. Arnold, I guess this question leads on from that comment. I was watching coverage of the Labor Party conference last night where they're all cogitating about the future of the party, and it and the opposition share the same problem. Their membership's declining. I'm just wondering if you've got any observations you'd like to share about why that might be and what they might do to arrest that.
Well, I have to say that I think factional hacks on both sides of politics have done no service to the body politic of this country. Too often there have been people who have ended up getting there by virtue of having factional support. I never was a member of a faction. When I was Premier, I was an independent in the Labor Party. So that has done enormous damage. And until that happens, why would many people at the branch level want to get involved? Because they say, well, I'm not sure I'm going to be heard, so why would I do it? And I don't just mean that for the Labor Party, I mean that for the Liberal Party and the other parties. Until they actually feel they can make a difference. When I first joined the Labor Party, you actually did have some real debates going on in the Brahma Lodge Hotel we used to meet in smoke-filled rooms. Those days. And it was great. these communities actually know what's wrong with their communities, and they need to be asked. And they actually have ideas about solving it, and they need to be listened to. And they need to be listened to carefully so you actually know what's being said, because so much gets lost across the languages. Even across English language, so much gets lost. And so, while Anglicare is looking at doing more in the young child lands, I've insisted we do it by a very listening process and make sure we absolutely have got it right about what is being told to us. Because I've seen, there are legendary stories in the international aid field, for example, that a community will say what's wrong, and then an aid agency will come in and just put in a whole pile of flush toilets. And they said, well, it wasn't flush toilets we wanted. We actually wanted clean water so our kids wouldn't get sick. And so to tell people what's wrong with their lives can so often be, at the minimal level, a waste of resources. But at a more profound level, it's a very disempowering thing that is going to end up them saying, well, you're not bothering listening to me at all. So with our work with the Aboriginal community, and Sonia Waters, our new director, is really very good at helping work through what's being told to us. We're also taking an active part in the Constitution debate, because in 2013 there'll be a vote on the Constitution and what it says about Aboriginal people. Haven't got time, but Clause 26 and Clause 51, if you're interested, look at Clause 51, subsection 26, and Clause 25, sorry, section 25 is there.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think if a young schoolgirl was interviewing Lynn Arnold, I'm sure she would be impressed with the number of things that Lynn has can personally raise name on over the years. And Lynn, thank you very much for your address and for your being so frank in your comments to the Rotary Club of Adelaide. Would you please stand?